Happy Wednesday and welcome to Lunch with EFI. We've got a full house again today. And so welcome in the order of the way my screen is laying it out. Jason, Jay, and Matt. Welcome.
Hey,
have you.
I'm hungry for lunch with EFI.
Yeah, let's do it. We've got a good appetizer from Matt. So let's throw it over to Matt.
Great. And Matt, there you go. So this week, Alan Greenspan passed away, and I was a big fan. I read his memoirs, which was, I think, ironically titled "The Age of Turbulence," and then the world became a lot more turbulent after his memoirs was published. But I love this quote from Greenspan that says, "Since I've become a central banker, I've learned to mumble with great incoherence. If I seem unduly clear to you, you must have misunderstood what I said."
That's great.
So Greenspan obviously was a free market guy, and just as sort of I personally miss the guy. I love the way he would talk about things in a very erudite, and as he's alluding to here in this quote, not exactly straightforward manner. So here's a quote from Greenspan about education. So he said, I think in 2004, that our key problem is not too few people with post-secondary degrees. Rather, he said, we must look further back in our education system. Many of our students languish at too low a skill level, and the result of it is an apparent excessive supply of low-skilled workers relative to a declining demand. These changing balances are most evident in the failure of real wages at the lower end of the income distribution. The hypothesis that we should be able to advance the knowledge in our students that our students acquire as they move from kindergarten to 12th grade gets some support from international comparisons. And he goes into the well-known phenomenon of, our fourth graders score pretty high and our middle schoolers, rank lower on tests like PISA and TIMSS. And of course, our high school students are on average dumber than a bag of hammers. So let's see.
That's a technical term.
Technical term. In short, our secondary school system needs to serve the requirements of a changing economy in the same way that the expansion of high schools with a broad curriculum served us so well in the first half of the 20th century. So basically, Greenspan said our K-12 system is terrible, right, and should be better. So, but he, didn't say that directly. He said it in a very oblique central banker type terms. So, rest in peace, Alan Greenspan. I, for one, will miss you.
Yeah. Jason, can you tell the Norm Macdonald?
Norm Macdonald, well, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in either 97 or 98, Norm Macdonald said of Alan Greenspan, who was at the age of 70 just getting married to Andrea Mitchell, and he said
much younger Andrea Mitchell.
They came up with their own vows, and that Andrea Mitchell promised to love him, cherish him, and speak into his good ear.
That's right.
But people used to predict what he was going to do in the Federal Reserve based on the size of his briefcase. So if they saw him coming in with a thin briefcase, then that meant he was probably not going to change anything.
No rate
But
hikes.
if he was coming in with a thick briefcase, there were a lot of materials, it meant he was going to either cut rates or raise rates. Although later somebody asked him about this and he said, no, it just depended on whether my wife made me a lunch or not.
Had nothing to do with it. That's great. Well, thank you for that, Matt. Yeah, he is. I think he has to go down as certainly the most well-known Fed chair.
Volcker.
Oh, Paul Volcker. Yeah.
Also colorful character,
Mm-hmm.
The central bankers, love them or hate them, they're always lots of entertainment.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Matt.
Yeah.
Now we're on to the main dish.
I was going to say it's certainly the end of an era with the passing of Greenspan, and it may also be the end of an era with the dismantling of the Department of Education. So is the DOE
it's already lost an R.
Yeah, it's already fallen apart. No, they've fixed it since this picture. Although I've heard rumors that there are those in the Department of Education who are calling dibs on different letters. Because they're planning. If all goes well, that they are planning to dismantle the Department of Education. And what the Trump administration is doing right now is entering into interagency agreements with other departments and taking core parts of the Department of Education that really could be in other departments and just moving them over there. So this past week, what they did is they announced that the Office of Civil Rights is going to be moving over to the Department of Justice, and that certain programs.
What do they know about civil rights?
What are they exactly? And lots of people are complaining, and this is going to be, they don't have the expertise. It's like, well, the people have the expertise. It's not the building that has the expertise. The people in this building have the expertise, and now they're moving over to a different building. But it's the same people. Okay, they still have the expertise. They still have the relationships.
Well, but the argument goes the other way, which is, well, what's the benefit of it? If you're just reshuffling people around to different buildings, what difference does it make?
So as I understand it, actually, the Department of Justice will have more teeth. And actually, they'll actually maybe even have a bigger team, because there are other, people at the Department of Justice that work on civil rights outside of schools.
So they might be better at it. But I thought the motivation for this outsourcing the various functions of the Department of Education to different agencies is really as proof of concept to convince Congress that we were able to perform all these functions before you created this department in 1980, and we could do it all again in the future without the department, that you don't need to have a departmental agency
the cabinet level position,
perform appropriate federal functions with respect to education. But by getting rid of the department, you reduce its status and influence in being able to lobby for more power, more money, more things, and expanding outside of the appropriate role of the federal government.
Correct. So there are certain functions you want to just get rid of entirely, and obviously that sort of lobbying relationship. I mean, the whole thing was really created, if you look back, as a giveaway to the NEA.
It was a payback.
Yeah.
For helping Carter win the election.
Right. So now you can just essentially, what they're doing is they're showing how you can dismantle it. You can put it in a bunch of different agencies, the parts that you're going to keep. Last week
and it all came from other agencies before.
Some of it was new in the Department of Ed, but some of it certainly came from other agencies. So for example, you have the Bureau of Indian Affairs, right? And you have Indian schools, and I think the Bureau of Indian Affairs is under the Department of the Interior. So you can move some of those things over there. Last week, one of the things they also moved was some programs related to students with special needs. That's now going over to HHS. And so they're actually physically moving a bunch of people out of the building into other departments. Some of the workforce development stuff is going over to the Department of Labor. They're moving them out of the building. Only Congress can get rid of an agency, of a federal agency, especially a cabinet level federal agency. But what they're doing is, if Congress has the votes next year, they don't now, but if in a year from now they have the votes, it will be a very easy process to get rid of the department, because these other agencies will already be taking on the work, and the people are already in the other buildings, and it'll be a much easier process.
And the hysterical opposition about how the sky will fall will not be credible, because it will have already occurred. This is a little bit like when David Berliner said that adopting school choice programs will lead to ethnic cleansing, as in Kosovo.
Yes.
I was there in New Mexico when he said it. Well, we've adopted school choice programs and have not yet had.
Well, not yet.
Not yet. Right.
Any second now.
Well,
right.
we might get there, but it's not going to be because of private school choice.
Well, that's our dessert. You know,
I was
save
just gonna say,
room for dessert. Okay.
I'm going to say, or
That's
we'll
right.
get.
What's the banner for our main course? You didn't put up the banner for our main course.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is it DOE, DOA?
But I have a question though. Isn't it the case that if we dismantle the Department of Education, even anything short, any step in the direction of actually shutting it down, like for instance, shuffling responsibilities over to other departments, doesn't that mean that the Trump administration hates kids and they're all going to get dumber?
I mean, look, I think it's worth noting this complaint about the civil rights stuff getting shifted. Can we take just a second to note just how catastrophically ineffective the Department of Education has been at ensuring civil rights? Just one example I might give is that the state of Texas carried out surreptitiously a cap on the number of special ed kids that public schools in the state of Texas could serve for 12 years.
Yeah, for years.
Okay. And we never learned about it until the Houston Chronicle did an investigation and revealed it, upon which I believe that the U.S. Department of Education sent a very stern letter to the Texas Education Department.
Explaining how disappointed we are.
I mean, Hans bricks. Oh no! Right? I mean,
this is what resolution looks like.
I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, look, it can't get any worse, right? I mean, I don't know what these people do. I don't know what kind of expertise they have. I'm sure they're all lovely people, and they root for their sports teams.
They've assigned the arc to top men.
They're all Houston fans, from what I hear.
Yeah, exactly. But whatever they're doing, like whatever they were doing before, it wasn't working. Right? I mean, it just wasn't.
I like that our movie references are quite old.
Appropriately so. That was the golden age of movies.
That's true.
What Team America is
basically 80s.
The golden age? I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I can't believe it didn't win the Oscar. I mean, for best.
Matt Damon.
Yeah,
Matt Damon.
Great acting in that one.
All
right. Now we should end.
Should we have some dessert?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're ready to feel full and sleepy. Come on, guys. So, there are these things called pagers, you young people. And anyway,
don't explain the joke.
Don't explain.
Literacy is a good thing. They'll figure it out.
So, yesterday's election results were a little shocking. We saw a good number of people, particularly in New York, win elections both to Congress and the state legislature, who are what we could call part of the Red-Green Alliance, which is the socialist and Islamist alliance. We've seen this alliance form in other countries, particularly in Europe, in the UK, and France.
And in Iran, when we had the Iran.
And in Iran.
How'd that work out for the communists, by the way?
They ended up dead.
Oh, right. They helped the communists help the Islamists get in.
Right.
And then the
alliance is only
and they slaughtered them.
The alliance is only during the revolution, and then they have to kill each other. And as it turns out, in Iran, the socialists and the Islamists, joined forces to boot out the Shah, and then upon victory, the Islamists promptly killed the socialists and drove them out. So yes, this is the Animal Farm way of politics. But the Red-Green Alliance exists in Europe, and it is forming in the U.S. And we saw it win a large number of offices yesterday. It was a primary yesterday, but the primary in these districts is the equivalent to the general election because there's no meaningful Republican Party fielding candidates in these districts. So this is who we're going to have. We're going to have people who call for the eradication of Western civilization, who say that 9/11 was justified. Somehow in 25 years' time, we went from people flying planes into buildings in New York to electing people who support flying buildings into, or think it's somehow justified to fly buildings or fly planes into buildings. Sorry, I keep thinking flying buildings, but anyway, it's kind of shocking. It is shocking, and it's worth reflecting on how this happened and where it might go from here. And an important part of how it has started in Europe and also in the US is with doctors. Doctors are an important part of launching the Red Green Alliance. They were an important part of it in the National Health Service in UK. And in the US, it's happening because the way we have set things up is that we have a shortage of spots in US medical schools. And that shortage occurs because we have an accreditation cartel that has restricted the expansion of medical education opportunities in the US for a very long time. And so the number of residencies we have, and the residency is the last stage in training, but they're actually being hired as doctors. The number of residencies we have exceeds the number of graduates from medical schools by quite a lot. In fact, we have 1.39 residency openings for every one doctor that we produce from medical school in the US. So we have to import the difference, which we do. We import 25% of our doctors each year from foreign medical schools to fill our residency programs so that we don't have doctor shortages. Now, there are good things about this. There are skilled foreign doctors who are good people, who are bringing their talents to the US, and we are benefiting from this. They're being trained at the expense of someone else, not a US taxpayer. There are reasons to like it, but there are also reasons to be worried about too much of it. Like everything in life, it's a balance, right? We can appreciate immigration and the skills and energy that immigration can bring, but we also have to balance that against other concerns and other priorities. And one of the other things that happens when you bring in a critical mass of foreigners is that they, especially doctors, is they come as high status, high wealth individuals. They become citizens very quickly. And then they become eligible for participation in American politics. And they bring with them fully formed political views. Their educations were completely, and their child rearing was completely elsewhere. And sometimes those political values are consistent with our own. Sometimes they're not. And so what we're doing is we're bringing in a large number of doctors from the Middle East and South Asia, particularly Pakistan, who like the economic opportunities of being a doctor in the US, but they look around and they see decadence. And they think, why can't things be like back home where we have good Islamic law? And I'm not saying this to be hysterical. This is just, some people will have this view. And that's not a problem unless you have a really large number of people who have that view. And they're really powerful because they're rich and well-connected doctors. And that's what we've created, is a network of wealthy, high-status doctors from places that have values that are not easily reconciled with the American political system. And then, not surprisingly, what they're doing is they're donating to help build the Red Green Alliance. And so Ian Kingsbury and I looked at this in a study for EFI that came out last year. And we looked at campaign contributions in the 2024 election cycle to members of the squad. And there you could see members of the squad. And then we had, just as a comparison group, centrist politicians. So we picked 6 politicians who, on a measure of ideological preference, were the middle 6 in the House of Representatives. Okay, that's how they were picked as the comparison group, just to make sure that doctors just don't give a lot to every politician. Well, as it turns out, doctors give a lot to the squad. They're an important part of political contributions to the squad, and not so much to centrist politicians. So on average, squad members received 18% of their campaign contributions in the 2024 election cycle from doctors, from a single occupation. Okay. For the comparison group, it was only 3%. So it's not just that doctors give to everybody because they're wealthy. They do give in politics at a higher than normal rate, but they really give a lot to the squad. But it's not just doctors; it's doctors from a particular place. So the next slide here is
can I just say real quick that's remarkable. And that's why obviously we're talking about it, because it's remarkable. But if anyone has ever looked through any candidates' campaign finance reports, anywhere, you'll find typically a long list. There's a great website, by the way, called followthemoney.org.
And we use Open Secrets.
Well, and now they're the one and the same. They've merged, but same idea. And so you can dig in and see, and if you, especially for Congress, it obviously shrinks quite a bit as you get more local in elected office. But the list of donors and their occupations is typically for federal office is quite long. And with each line item being one occupation or one organization, right? Typically is what it will be. So like the fact that around a quarter of all donations are coming from doctors for some of these folks is incredible.
Keep in mind, I want to make sure that everyone is clear on what the denominator here is. It is 18% for the average squad member. Now, as it turns out, AOC actually raises more money than the others. So it's not 18% of all dollars of the squad. It's 18% is the average of the dollars for each of the 6 members. Right.
So but Ilhan Omar,
the numbers that you 6 numbers take an average, it's 18%. And now the reason why I think it's lower for AOC is that she has, once you get launched, you can begin to have a broader base. But the doctors are the key to that base to get these people started. They're kickstarting the Red Green Alliance. But then when it hits the big time, it can draw more broadly. So anyway, it's not just doctors. We also looked at where those doctors received their medical degrees. And we found that for the squad, 2/3 of them, 2/3 of the doctors who contributed to the squad got their medical degrees outside the United States, which is a lot. Remember, only 25% of newly entering doctors are from abroad. Of the whole medical profession, it's actually less than that because the percentage has gone up over time. So if you're looking at older doctors, it's a lower percent from abroad. And yet 2/3 of the doctors who give to the squad are foreign trained. And of them, 85% are from the Middle East or South Asia, overwhelmingly Pakistan. Like that's the big player here, okay? And it just so happens, by the way, that Pakistan produces 5 times as many medical graduates as they can consume domestically. They export 80% of their medical graduates. It's an export business for them. Now, a lot of them went to the National Health Service in the UK and helped build the Red Green Alliance there, okay? And now they're doing it here. And so if you look over at the UK and you like what you see, then keep going. Okay. But if you don't like what you see, you might want to think about, how can we limit this? I'm not talking about getting rid of it. I'm not against foreign trained doctors. I know there are many really great foreign trained doctors, and we should appreciate them. I'm not trying to make a blanket statement. I'm just trying to again balance concerns. And the balance here is, okay, we need doctors and we want skilled doctors, but we also want to preserve our political system and avoid basically an organized infiltration attempt to hijack our political system. That is what we're looking at. Okay. And the only way to do that is to begin to first increase production of domestic trained doctors. There's such strong demand to be a doctor in the US, in excess of supply, that some of our citizens go to the Caribbean to get medical training and then come back because we don't have enough spots in medical school. So we know the demand is there. We know from average MCAT and GPA measures that actually it's harder to get into med school than it's ever been. So we have quality people out there who want to be doctors, and we need to expand the number of spots so we can train more American citizens and need to import fewer from abroad. To the extent that we still need to import doctors from abroad, we might want to think through carefully where they come from.
Just an anecdote, a friend of mine, very successful family practitioner, and well-respected. He went to Mexico to get his degree.
Yeah, Mexico and Caribbean have these expat schools.
Yeah.
And interestingly, they're actually accredited also by an accreditor that's recognized by the Secretary of Education, by the U.S. Okay, so they actually are their medical training is supervised ultimately by the United States. But for those trained elsewhere, there is no accreditation review.
So is this just a cartel issue, Jay?
This is a cartel issue, right? There are two accreditors, two monopoly accreditors. One monopoly accreditor for MDs, another monopoly accreditor for DOs, and particularly the one for MDs is really slow walked. For many years, they held the position that we had a Dr. Glut, and they put effectively a freeze on new med schools for 25 years. Now they've now reversed position, but they're slow walking the expansion. DOs expanded more, but they started from a much smaller base, and so we are needing to expand medical education more rapidly, which I think is going to means that we have to loosen this accreditation cartel. And I mean, look, it's not about whether we it's not that foreigners in general are dangerous and bad. It's just that too much of anything is dangerous and bad. And so having a quarter of a high-powered, high-influence occupation come in from abroad with a very large chunk coming from Pakistan is politically a problem. And there's just no way getting around that. Now, what happens in the future with this New York election result? I mean, when the DSA, which is taking over the Democratic Party, when they bring this show to Mid-America, will it sell? I don't know. Maybe they're setting themselves up for defeat in the midterm by going too extreme and handing the Republicans an election issue to compensate for their own extremists that they're having trouble with. I don't know. And also, election results are strongly influenced by events in the world that are outside of everyone's control. The rate of inflation is not directly under the control of politicians, and it's going to, elevated prices are not going to come down. And so there are things that that might drive the election result, independent of the extremists that are being put on the ballot. And so we may end up with more extremists in government than we would really like to see, and this could lead to a very negative direction for the country. I mean, which is why assimilating immigrants into the American system has been our very good system in the past. Being welcoming to immigrants and assimilating them into our political system, often by bringing them in at younger ages where the education they receive is increased in the US and where American schools are actually focused on assimilation and endorsement of the American political system. That was a great arrangement. All of this is falling apart, right? We're having too many come in at older ages as fully formed adults, and the American education system and popular culture are much more critical of the American political system than they ever were in the past. And so it's not assimilating these newcomers.
I'm quite skeptical of the public education system as the great assimilator, either now or in the past. I mean,
so maybe it was movies. You know, I don't know what it was, but we had a variety of institutions that could perform assimilation function.
Well, but there was also a strong desire among the immigrants themselves to be American. I've been thinking about this. You know, we've done a great disservice to Minnesota and to many other states in this country in the past, 30, 40 years by allowing enclaves to form.
It's not allowing, we actually mandated it. That's where we concentrated the relocation.
100, that's exactly right. 100 years ago, 130, 20, 30 years ago, enclaves formed. That is true. What was different, though? The difference was that those enclaves were full of Italian immigrants and Russian immigrants that came here to become American. We don't have that in the enclaves that we formed.
What's different? I mean, why shouldn't they? America's still awesome. Why shouldn't they want to be American like they always do?
I think we shouldn't get carried away. Like, yes, we've got some.
But I want to, Matt.
I know. I mean, look, I've read the stories from Minnesota, and they're bad, right? But by and large, I think that most, at least legal immigrants, do come to the United States for these very reasons, right? Like, they do want to become. Just watch these European soccer fans going gaga over America, right? Like, we're blind to this and just how awesome a country we have, right?
Yep.
I mean, the
trouble is if you bring in a critical mass that has a particular viewpoint and is super powerful. Like, honestly, bringing in, where I live, Tyson Chicken has a bunch of chicken processing plants, and they have a lot of immigrants from Central America. Okay. But those people are poor, and they're not very politically powerful. They're not sophisticated. They're not wealthy. By the time their families become politically powerful, they're fully assimilated and American, right? That's a generation or two away, okay? But if you come in as a six-figure doctor, you're powerful right away, okay?
I don't deny that.
High-skilled immigration is much more politically dangerous than low-skilled immigration.
Yes, and maybe in many instances, a lot more beneficial too, right? I mean,
right. It's a balance. It's a balance.
It is, but I mean, look, if we can't trust the public school system to teach fourth graders how to read,
I agree.
Like, what are we thinking that we can trust these same people to assimilate immigrants or to do much of anything else of importance?
To a great extent, the public school system was created to assimilate Catholics.
Yeah, right. And there was
Catholics ended up setting up their own schools. It used to be every Catholic child a Catholic school. That was a saying. The bishops, really pushed it.
To prove that they were thoroughly American, they had big American flags.
Yes. So that was the thing. The Catholic schools modeled themselves after the public schools and said, "Look, we're going to do everything just the way you do it. We're just going to do it and be Catholic," right? But they were they actually did, and we have a ton of research on this that shows that they actually did a better job instilling patriotic sentiments than the public school system.
Right.
So the public schools, it's true, the public schools were meant to be these assimilationist institutions. It's not clear how successful they were. What was really successful was that the Catholic schools that opened wanted their kids to assimilate. They wanted them to keep their religious tradition, but they wanted them to be fully American, right? And I don't think that's actually what's going on in a lot of the madrasas, okay? We've got a lot of videos where these kids are chanting about being martyrs and beheading the infidel. Now, that's not to say that's all. That's not to say that's all.
They just want to change America. They're not anti-American. They just want to improve it.
They improve it by making it Islamist. Now, again, that's not all of these schools.
Yeah.
Some of them very much are producing kids who are patriotic, and there are, especially in previous waves of immigration, you had a lot of Muslims who left Islamist countries. They are non-Islamist Muslims. Islamist is a political ideology that wants to install Sharia law. Just like, the vast majority of Catholics are not integralists. Integralist Catholics want to have basically, papal law imposed on a country. The vast majority of Catholics are like, these people are nuts. We don't want anything to do with that, right? But the truth is, there are a lot of Islamists. Now, earlier waves, maybe we're not, but increasingly we are seeing more Islamists coming to this country. We are seeing them establish institutions. There's a group called Memory.
And if they drive taxis, not as dangerous. If they run medical offices, more dangerous politically, right?
Right, certainly.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful. And this is Alan says the Illinoisers think they're doing America. Yeah, right.
This is why they
wait. Put that back up. Put that back up. Yeah. By the way, just a shout out to EFI for publishing this study last year. Everyone should go read it. It's on the EFI website. Other organizations were hesitant about this work, and I think EFI is one of the important reasons that EFI exists is a willingness to take on issues by telling the truth, even when it might be controversial. And I know that this is a controversial issue, but I think there's a way to handle it responsibly, and EFI does that, and I think this study did that. But we've also done other analyses with political giving. We've looked at political giving by teachers and professors in another study. You should check that one out.
Yeah. We should toot our own horn here a little bit more on that note, that it happens not infrequently that we will get, at least I hear about these. Hey, I'm having trouble getting this published here. Any chance you guys would be interested? And not everyone gets published because they find another route, or they figure some other way to take it. But that the value of having an organization like that will unapologetically publish the truth, whatever it might say, I think is very valuable.
This is why I'm very proud to be part of the EFI family and to participate in this conversation. And frankly, I think we're having these conversations with each other because we like it and we like just saying true things to each other. I'm thrilled that someone's actually watching other than our AFC minders. Thank you, Alan, for tuning in. We haven't given our shout. We need to have our shout out to our AFC minders.
We should have a list of acknowledgments.
We're thrilled you're here. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you're not destroying school choice systems in any other state at the moment. That'd be bad if you were. We would oppose that.
We would oppose it. That's true.
We would oppose that, as we have in Arizona. I didn't want a lunch to pass without it's sort of like our Brakat Hamazon. We have to say our AFC.
I would love to see a year-end tally of how much money AFC has spent on employee time to watch this podcast.
How do you spend 5.3 million on a failed referendum? I mean, I wish I had that kind of money to set on fire.
Donate to EFI.
If I were a donor, I might wonder, that's 5.3 million you set on fire that I gave you. Like
I could have done it for half.
I could set it on fire.
I could have had a failed referendum for half.
To quote another earlier in the century movie, it's not about the money. It's about sending a message.
That's right.
But the reason why we're able to have this conversation is because a group like EFI exists where it doesn't have to care. Like, we don't care. We don't care that you, AFC minders, don't like this. That's the whole point of it.
Right.
And we don't care that you're gonna good luck trying to call the board members of EFI and get them to punish us and silence us.
I'm on the board.
These actual debate think tanks do.
Well, in other words, we care about the issues. We just don't care what other people in the movement think.
It's worth noting that we've seen in recent history examples of mistaken consensus.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
This was true in the school choice movement, frankly. This is what we were talking about last week.
Exactly. The charter school movement had this ironclad consensus that it was enforced somewhat, maybe perhaps innocently, by the donors to ratchet up on regulation and careful, high quality authorization.
Smart regulations.
Yeah. And, the cost of that became increasingly clear. But for a long time, it was, fringe people like us were the only ones willing to talk about it. Right?
And there are best practices. I've read about best practices. Whenever I see best practices, I tend to think that the person's a moron. That's just me. That's just me. Because I tend to do things because I think that they're good and right. But if I just imitate what other people do because it's a matter of
well, then they're the best. That's why.
How do you know it's? You don't know it's best. You just know it's common. Okay.
It's sort of like the cargo cult, right? They imitated these were the people in Pacific Islands. You've got this sort of primitive culture during World War II. They see, the Americans built landing strips, and then they go out and they take 2 orange cones and they go like this and they go like that, and then a plane comes down and lands, and all these supplies come off, and they give some to the natives, right? And then the war ends, and everybody leaves, and then the natives like, how do we get these metal birds to come down? So they go out and they take these these sticks and they sort of make them orange, and they go like this and they go like that, and they do the little dance, and they're like, where are the birds coming down from the sky? With our stuff. We copied them exactly. We did the best practices, but it didn't work.
Well, if I were a donor, I'm just thinking here, if I were a donor, I'd want to give to a think tank that thinks, as opposed to imitates. That's what I would do. But I'm not a board member of a major organization.
Well, that's why you're not in charge, Jay.
I'm not in charge. That's pretty clear. I'm painfully aware I'm not in charge.
What are you talking about? We have the power to control what the legislature does and doesn't do. We're simultaneously fringe and super powerful.
You're extremely ineffective, and you also changed the outcome.
Well, that sounds oddly familiar, Jason, that I've been hearing that theme.
Right.
The movement would be much better served if we took an experimental mindset, and that we did not presume that we know what is best, and that we should go to like when I wrote about the Arizona charter school experience, I was at pains to always say I'm not saying that Maryland should adopt Arizona's charter school practices, right? Like, I am aware.
You didn't do the Arizona Miracle talk?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, look, are you guys ever going to just really let it rip here in Maryland? Probably not, right? But like, maybe this is why you shouldn't be so hostile to the idea, because it turns out it worked really well here in Arizona, right?
But we have to try different things. Like, I could tell you from the very early days of school choice, we kept glomming onto a model. There was the Milwaukee model, and then there was the Florida model. And in truth, each time we didn't know the right model, and we realized there were different best models in different circumstances. Yeah. And people are going to figure it out, and we shouldn't try to impose on them whatever our last victory was, because yeah.
Well, this has been a fantastic lunch.
Yes, very filling, and if anyone is watching other than Alan and our AFC minders, thanks for joining. And if not, it's just great chatting with the rest of you.
That's right. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care.